Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, Emerald Planet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the Emerald Planet, Dr. Sam Lee Henn.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations looking for the 1,000 best practices, the technologies, the services, and the products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And of course, we're looking for those leaders that are going to take us towards 2050, help us to deal with the infrastructure and all the basic human needs as we add 2 billion new people to the planet. So as the climate change continues to accelerate and we add more human beings, how are we going to be able to balance all this as we move through the 21st century? We have a gentleman sitting beside me who's been working on this topic and issue for a long time and doing it through unmanned aerial systems. This is John J.C. Coffey, who is the Vice President of the Unmanned Aerial Systems Division with Trivector Services. And J.C., welcome.
Thanks, Sam. It's great to be here.
Glad to have you on the Emerald Planet, and it's exciting what you're doing and the fact that you can take unmanned vehicles, put them in the air, and some of them up there for an hour or two, and others you say could be up there for a week.
It's just amazing.
It's incredible.
It sure is.
What you're doing. Tell us a little bit about Trivector Services. What does it mean, and a little bit of the background, and we'll start talking about all these unmanned systems and what they're bringing to the planet and how we can use them.
Yeah, well, Trivector is based out of Huntsville, Alabama, and they got the logo and the Trivector from experience, performance, and value. And what we work on is engineering and programmatics for airborne and space-based systems, both rockets and the payloads that go up on them. And we have moved towards unmanned aircraft and have been doing a lot of work both commercially and for the government, nationally and internationally, with our partners through interagency groups and such. And we've done, most recently with the unmanned systems, have done analysis of alternatives, the assessments of those alternatives, gone out in the field and flown a number of different UASs and different mission sets and see how the UASs are capturing those mission sets and then expanding into the program activity. Should we acquire those systems or should we rent those systems? And that's the basis for Trivector, and they've been doing great work over the past several years.
Well, I tell you, I was looking at your pedigree, if you will, your biography, and all the different winged and I guess rotary systems that you've flown over the years. It's absolutely incredible. So how do you take all that experience, because these are very different but I guess some ways similar systems, and then put that into these new unmanned aerial systems?
Yeah, well, it's very interesting, Sam. I mean, I go back to the Cold War, which seems like it was decades ago. It seems like it was just yesterday, but some of those systems, this is before GPS, before really good command and control. The manned aircraft, the navigation systems and the computing power was unbelievably poor back in those days. And now, because of how quick command and control has come up, computing power, the sensors that you can put on smaller and smaller platforms, it has been incredible. We can get on very, very small unmanned systems. And I think that is the future here. It's the things that have made unmanned systems just grow prolifically has been the power that the propulsion systems have gotten smaller and more efficient. The sensors have gotten smaller and more efficient.
The miniaturization of the whole system is just incredible.
That's right.
Been able to pack, and it's very light, and also I guess the more and more you're going to solar in some of these.
That's right. Hydrogen fuel cells, solar power. It's just it's eye-watering. And yeah, Moore's law. We've been using it to our advantage. So if it's every 18 months, things are half as expensive, twice as capable, and half the weight. And in aviation, that's crucial.
Well, looking at this photograph here, it's just amazing how you have these balloons, and then what it's really morphed into as we move through the 21st century. And I assume what you're saying, JC, is that they're going to get smaller, faster, longer lasting as far as being in flight and be able to process and send more information back to Earth.
Well, that's right. And the slide you see up there is we've been using systems to do airborne reconnaissance since the Civil War. And it was manned then, but now because of the power of the sensor, we were able to do things we were never able to do before. And so I showed an airship on doing work in the Civil War, and then an airship most recently taking pictures of Central Park unmanned. And then the Aerosonde flew across the Atlantic a decade ago on 2 gallons of gas. So think about that. When we're starting to do those kind of journeys on gallons of gas as opposed to thousands of gallons of gas, and being able to stay on station for that much longer, it just the environmental impact is incredible.
Well, we keep talking about the phenomenal development that's been going on in these unmanned aerial systems, and it's like it's happened all of a sudden. But it's kind of like many people say, well, how long did it take you for success?
That's
and
right.
Your immediate success, and it said only 27 years.
That's right.
And so this whole thing that we're talking about here, it seems like it's really popped onto society and its use, but this has been evolving for a very long time, like you said, from the Civil War all the way through to as we move through this decade.
That's right, Sam. And even the platforms that we're just hearing about now, for instance, the Global Hawk that's up, that platform's been around for more than a decade. But now we're using it to do environmental studies. We are currently flying out of Wallops Field with the NASA NOAA team and going above and around hurricanes, and to get the data that'll help our scientists improve their forecasting.
Well, looking at this photograph here, and the oceans are involved, I mean, this is really something that you can use no matter where you are. And of course, with agriculturalists, with forestry, food production, fisheries, I mean, you just name it. It's very important because we're adding 2 billion new people to the planet, and we're going to have to figure out how to provide the food, the fuel, and the fiber for all these people. And what you're doing is you're providing the diagnostics tools to be able to figure out what next and where are the best places to be able to do this.
Well, that's right. And back in the days, we used to talk about unmanned aircraft doing the dull, dangerous, dirty, and denied missions. One of those places up in the Arctic region, just hard to get to with manned aircraft. But now we're able to fly from Dryden up to the Arctic region and back on a single payload of gas. And more we've moved from the 4Ds, and now it's the 4Es of efficiency, effectiveness, economical, and environmentally friendly.
Let's do that one more time. That's something that we need to re-emphasize with our domestic and international guests, the 4Es.
Right, the 4Es: efficient, effective, economical, and environmentally friendly. So now when we're doing missions, you're on station the second you launch a small UAS from a ship, where in the past you had to transit out from the coast to get out to the operating area when you're doing a maritime survey. And now you're able to stay airborne with an electric charge or on a hydrogen fuel cell. You're on a small UAS can stay airborne for 48 hours now. The Naval Research Laboratory just did a 48-hour test on a couple of drops of hydrogen. And they were able to, a very small UAS, stay aloft for 48 hours, and the exhaust is water. So that's pretty good advancements over a short amount of time.
Well, JC, this is one of the things about hydrogen that many people have said it's going to be 50 years before we'll see it again. And some people in your past profession have been saying that, and others, particularly in Europe and Japan, are saying, well, it's already here.
Sure.
And what you're saying is in these unmanned systems that really hydrogen is already being used as a fuel source.
That's right. The hydrogen fuel cell, very, very, very powerful device. And the Naval Research Laboratory has a great lead on doing a lot of this testing, but several other government and industry partners are doing a lot of work with that as well.
Let's rest right here as far as the hydrogen. Looking at the hydrogen, how long has that been available in these types of vehicles? And where do you see the future going as far as hydrogen is concerned?
Well, as I said, I think, again, the 3 big advancements that we've had, the C2, the miniaturization, but the propulsion systems. And when you're talking about aviation, propulsion is the key. Whether it's the development of the jet engine and how it's advanced from World War II, or the hydrogen fuel cell. And really, we're very early on when it comes to harnessing hydrogen and really making it applicable to a lot of different systems out there. But the research is being done, and then we'll transition that research to operations as it matures.
Looking at these unmanned systems as they're going across the Earth, and I know you can take them down very low and you can almost really study the ground and all that. And of course, they have sensors. They're bringing back information as far as the soil, what's in the soil, the nutrients, the moisture content, and all that. How is that being translated to the agriculturalists that are dealing with, vegetable crops, field crops, forest, and all these other types of products that are very important for today's population?
Well, it's amazing how quickly you can get a system airborne right now. And the sensors that everybody is interested in besides optics and infrared are typically LiDAR, hyperspectral, and some kind of radar. The LiDAR and hyperspectral for crops, just unbelievable what we're able to pull off. Just going over certain parts of crop areas and deciding which need more fertilizer or which need to be handled a different way. It will save us all and make the whole operation, the gardening and farming operation, so much more efficient.
Well, looking at these systems too, what is the cost of these? Because I know they're coming down dramatically in price. Many even clubs now are starting to use these types of unmanned vehicles. So what are we looking at? So a farmer that really would like to employ this over large scale operations, say 1,000, several thousand acres.
Right. So you have your high-end systems that are great and they've served their tasks, and now we're talking about the $100 million plus realm. But now we're getting systems, especially expendable systems, that you may be able to launch from an aircraft or may go on such a dangerous mission like flying into a volcanic plume that we can get under $3,000. Which is amazing. Now that's one of the reasons why they become so prolific too, is the economy of them, how affordable they are, so people can reach out and touch them and use them for their operations.
What do you see for the future? We only have about a minute left, and so we need to be quick about this, JC, but the future of the unmanned aerial systems, what do you see?
Right, so I think the technology is there, the know-how is there. We've coupled with industry, academia, and the government. I think as long as we can understand what the requirements are for what our scientists need, what our operators need, what different industries need out in the field, put those together, we'll find results that'll be eye-watering. It'll exceed everybody's expectation, where we're going with these and what can be done. So again, I think one step at a time, the research that's being done right now will transition to unbelievable operations in the future.
Well, I tell you, it's really fantastic, and it's just like the future is here.
That's true.
And it's just really exciting. So John, J.C. Coffey is the Vice President, Unmanned Aerial Systems Division of Trivector Services. And thank you for being with us and sharing about everything that's going on in the unmanned systems as we create the Emerald Planet.
Around the world, 1 out of every 3 women will be beaten or otherwise abused in their lifetime, often by a family member or loved one. A future free from violence. It's all she's ever wished for.
Did you know you have the power to stop children from joining gangs? You can help a father find a job and home for his family. You can assist a woman who can't afford the medicine she needs to live and the home she can't live without. You can choose to make a difference in our community. Support Volunteers of America, and you can help improve the lives of nearly 2 million Americans each year, with programs and services that help individuals and families overcome their challenges to become as independent as possible. Support the programs that are working in our community. Contact Volunteers of America today. Call 1-800-899-0089.
For some folks, saving for the future is easy, but for you, it might take a little more effort. Saving for your future is your responsibility, and there's a lot to save for.
I never thought of that.
like your child's education, perhaps uncovered medical expenses, or just to be sure you can live the way you want when you retire. The time is now to save for tomorrow. Save now or work forever. The choice is yours. Choose to save.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you looking around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for the 1,000 best practices, the technologies, the services, and the products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And we come to you each week from Washington, D.C. in the United States to bring you the latest information and what we call the best practices. And so that includes not only the technologies and the products, but also the people that are making a difference. We have a gentleman that's going to be joining us from Virginia Tech out in Blacksburg, Virginia. Is coming in by Skype. He's Donnie Rogers, and he is the project lead for what is known now as Precision Agriculture. And he's in the Mechanical Engineering Unmanned Systems Laboratory at Virginia Tech. And Donnie, welcome to the Emerald Planet.
Hi, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're going to have to pay you according to the length of your title. So anyway, we're glad to have you with us. But looking at where is Virginia Tech, and tell us a little bit about the land-grant university for Virginia.
Sure. So Virginia Tech, as you mentioned, is located in Blacksburg. That's Southwest Virginia. Really great area. And yeah, as you mentioned, the land-grant university, how one of the ways, or how Virginia Tech kind of got its start as a focus on agriculture and those sort of things, and engineering. Just a great place to be.
Well, we're glad to have you on, and it's really, we bring up this first photograph. All the Hokie Nation is going to, if we can bring this up, we'll be very pleased to see this this UAV that you have here, and I don't know who did the paint job on that, but they certainly did a good job. But tell us what we're looking at, and how does this actually relate to this unmanned aerial systems, unmanned aerial vehicles, as some people call them, and what will this little contraption actually do?
Sure. So what you're looking at there, that's our RMAX helicopter. Created by Yamaha. Yamaha's actually been flying these in Japan for a decade or more now. And my lab, the Unmanned Systems Lab, has been operating that RMAX for almost 5 years. It's an unmanned aircraft, so it has on board an autopilot, GPS, navigation system. You can actually see in the background there our ground station. That's our truck. So anytime we go up for a flight mission, we got a guy or two inside the truck on a computer talking to the helicopter, and then we have a pilot on the ground who controls the aircraft over RC, like a model airplane or something. So he is kind of, you can almost see him there. He's kind of always in control. He can switch over control to the autonomous system at any point. We've flown, I think in the few years that I've been there, we've flown several different missions from things. We had a large project funded by DTRA for nuclear material detection. So we flew a detector on our UAV, that helicopter you see there, to try and map out patterns of radiation. The project that I'm focused on that we're moving into is a precision agriculture, where we're looking to monitor the fertilizer rate in a corn crop that's growing out there at Virginia Tech.
Yeah, and also too, looking at precision agriculture, this is really almost a new term. What do you mean by precision agriculture, and how does that relate to modern farming practices?
Sure. So precision agriculture is a term that came about as we started integrating more technology into agricultural practices. And that's where, things like UAVs or even ground vehicles give you this ability to collect very quickly a lot of information that allow farmers and farm managers to make well-informed decisions about their crop or their farm. And so I think that term originally in the research community from a remote sensing area, there are people that used to fly, and they probably still do, manned aircraft over farms, and they'll take images and do the analysis. But now we can put those same systems on a much smaller unmanned vehicle. And I think, as JC mentioned, big advantage is how economical it is to do these missions now.
Well, looking at the notion of drought around the globe, as you know, the many countries are actually drying out, such as India, China, Australia, even the west coast of the United States. And so water, moisture content of soil is critical as far as being able to produce the food, the fuel, and the fiber that we need as we add all these new citizens to the planet. So how these unmanned aerial vehicles, how are they actually aiding and providing additional information that is needed to determine where moisture is needed, maybe where it's not, and then not only just the fertilizer, but also insecticides, pesticides, and possibly how to avoid using these harsh chemicals?
Right. So I'm not as familiar with moisture content analysis. It's a direction I know my group specifically is looking to go to. But any sort of sensor or payload that scientists have been using before, if there's a guy at the farm on the ground who's taking soil samples, one at a time, that's an area where maybe it's not an unmanned aerial vehicle, maybe it becomes an unmanned ground vehicle, is able to do those tasks and then in some cases analyze that data right there on the ground on the vehicle and communicate that to a farm. And I think where UAS in particular, the advantage is in aerial mapping. So I can fly over the fields and create an entire map, and then let's say overlay on that map some relevant information, whether it be fertilizer rate, moisture content, and when you want to move into that mapping gives you the ability to hopefully reduce the amount of harsh chemicals and pesticides and fungicides if you're able to more intelligently detect and almost spot treat your farm where certain crops need it and certain crops don't.
Well, looking at the use of this technology and then having that sent back into your own laboratory there at Virginia Tech, how fast is the processing of this information? Or do you actually have processors on these UAVs, UASs that actually can process it and send you the final results? Or is that something you must actually do in the laboratory itself?
Where the project's at right now, we retrieve the data off the system to do our processing. But we have the computing technology is there, and it's just a matter of getting that computer on board, and things like power requirements, weight requirements start to become not problematic, but you need to take care of those kind of things. But currently, right, we do all of our post-processing after the flight mission in the lab, but it's not much of a stretch to put those capabilities on the vehicle itself.
Now looking at, then I'm going to let JC ask a question in a minute, but looking at this chart that we just had up there, is this some of the analysis that you would actually be doing through these vehicles that would allow you to be able to report back to the agriculturalist, either the farmer, the forest, or truck farmer, and as far as what they need to be doing and how to do it?
Right, so that chart there summarizes how our test field has been set up by our farmers for us. So they divided this field into these 24 subplots, and then they selected or applied a certain amount of nitrogen, the primary fertilizer in corn, the crop that we're studying. They applied 1 of 4 different amounts on each of those subplots. And the idea of our system is we would be able to fly over that field and give you these same results. We'd be able to fly over and say, we know at this subplot there's more or less fertilizer. We may not be able to get down to the exact number, but we'd be able to visually tell you with user interpreted data, how healthy that field relative is to its neighbors.
Well, we have, as you know, John J.C. Coffey, who is Vice President of Unmanned Aerial Systems Division of Trivector Services. He's here as a backup in case we lose you by Skype. Fortunately, we've been able to keep you with us, Donnie, so I'm going to let J.C. ask the next question.
Hi, Donnie. I've been tracking your work for quite a while now, and it's just amazing what you guys have done. Why do you think the missions that you're flying are so critical in the 21st century to aid and assist food, forest, and seafood production while monitoring climate conditions in real time? And what have your favorite mission sets been? What do you see as your most important mission sets that you've done in the last couple of years?
Oh, thanks, first of all, for the compliment there. Let me think. I'll skip to the end there, and I'll say that my favorite mission so far has been this precision agriculture. It's brand new for us at my lab, and I think it's very exciting. As an engineer, I like to see results be applied, and I think this is a great way for a technology to get results and then apply those results. I think, moving forward, I'm trying to remember AVSI, a group here that just had a large conference in Washington, D.C. actually mentioned that they think, precision agriculture might be the largest market for UAS in the coming years. And I agree with that. As you mentioned, the ability for these systems for mapping and then the ability to give information to farmers so they can, make better decisions. They're able to limit the amount of spray, limit the amount of nitrogen, pick crops at the right time, increase their yield. The opportunities for these systems to help farmers and help the food industry, agriculture in general, is just unparalleled, in my opinion.
Donnie, we're just about running out of time, so we have another question. I'll bring up this next photograph here, maybe talk about it. But what do you see for the next 5 or 10, 15 years as far as the growth of the UAVs, UASs, and the work that you're doing? And again, you have about now 30 seconds.
Well, like I said, I think it's going up. I think you're going to see a lot of UAS involvement in agriculture once the FAA has the proper laws passed. I think I already know of a group in John Deere working with unmanned systems. As I mentioned, Yamaha flies unmanned systems in Japan over rice fields. I think it's just going to go up, up, and up.
Well, thank you for being with us, Donnie Rogers, who is the project lead for precision agriculture at the laboratory out at Virginia Tech, Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University in Blacksburg, Virginia. Donnie, thank you for being with us. And we have sitting right beside me is J.C. Coffey, Vice President of Trivector Services, as we create the Emerald Planet.
Saving for retirement might be easy for some folk, but for others, it might take a little more work. And for those who haven't started, there are still things you can do to catch up.
Oh, that is good news.
Like getting out from underneath past debt. And don't get wrapped up with high-interest credit cards.
Get you some eyes.
Be diversified with your investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Your financial goals are not out of reach. The choice is clear. For a happy ending, choose to save.
Everyone with alcohol and drug addiction is in the same boat. With treatment, you can find solid ground. For drug and alcohol information and treatment referral for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP.
Dude, are you sure you want this tattoo? Because just do it.
Some mistakes in life are permanent, like hearing loss. To learn how to protect your hearing, visit asha.org.
You've probably heard about heart disease, but did you know that it's the #1 killer of women nationwide? Heart disease claims more lives each year than breast cancer, lung cancer, or strokes combined. But there are steps you can take to protect yourself against it. For more information on how you can prevent heart disease, contact your local American Heart Association or visit their website at www.americanheart.org.
And welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States, as we're looking around the globe, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technologies, the services, and the products that are making a difference as we move towards 2050. One of the themes we have, paving the way to 2050 Future Earth, is looking at the various latest technologies and machinery, tools, technologies, services, and products that many people didn't even think were possible a few years ago, but actually are becoming very mainstream as we look to take care of a planet that's going to have 9 billion citizens by 2050, a planet that's drying out, is facing extreme climate change, and at the same time we need to be able to accommodate these 2 billion new people on the planet at a higher quality of life and a greater standard of living than just existing. A gentleman that's on the leading edge of what is really going on in the planet, the great changes in the Arctic Circle, is Gregory W. Walker, who is the director of the Alaska Center for Unmanned Aerial Systems, UAS integration at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, a very beautiful campus. And then right beside me is J.C. Coffey, who is the Vice President of Unmanned Aerial Systems Division of Trivector Services. Greg, welcome from the great state of Alaska.
Good afternoon.
We're glad to have you with us, and we're going to bring up this first slide to be up on the screen with you. This is going to promote the University of Alaska at Fairbanks, which is a very beautiful campus. But tell us a little bit about your university and some of the special things that are going on there, and then we'll start talking about these unmanned vehicles that really is the focus of our topic this afternoon.
Sure. Well, similar to Virginia Tech, we're also a land, sea, and space grant university. And the University of Alaska in Fairbanks is the state's premier research institute. We have approximately 11,000 students over 7 different campuses, with over 1,000 of them as graduate students. Many are focusing on the opportunities that this natural environment, that surrounds us up here is all about.
Well, looking at what you are doing there in the great state of Alaska and the university, being near the Arctic zone, things have changed very dramatically over the last decade or more. What are you seeing as far as the changes that are happening to the environment there in Alaska, and what's going on in the Arctic Circle itself?
Well, we are the canary, they often say, in the coal mine up here for climate change. And one thing we're seeing is a lot more activity in the Arctic. We've just redeployed with some unmanned aircraft here just last couple weeks ago from the Marginal Ice Zone Observation Project. This was a project where we got to fly about 46 hours over 16 different flights. Many of these flights were with multiple aircraft, 2 at the same time, sometimes even flying in formation. This was a NASA project that was also supported by NOAA, looking at some of the hard questions that are trying to answer as to what's warming the Arctic Ocean. Aside from this mission, we've supported oil exploration up here and its development, as well as oil spill response. With all the increase in shipping up here, it's bound eventually to have a shipping accident that causes some oil leaks. But there could also be oil spill from the development efforts, and we're trying to understand how this technology, this unmanned aircraft technology, could really help with that.
Well,
we've also experimented even with piloting ships in the sea ice, just trying to help guide shipping.
Well, looking at what's going on in the Arctic zone and the fact now that there's an open shipping lane across the top of the Earth, many people just can't even conceive of that happening. And of course, 25, 30 years ago, people absolutely would not conceive of it. And now through the summer months, it's actually occurring, and many nations are queuing up to actually go through that shorter route. So what kind of environmental impact is that going to have? Not only just the fact of an accident and maybe an oil spill, but what other kinds of environmental impacts will we see as far as this change of the Arctic zone?
Well, generally just the increase in presence up there. You know, the terrain is very susceptible to humans' activity. It doesn't respond as quickly. It takes a lot longer for it to react if you get on the terrain. You know, but honestly, our work up here at the university goes way beyond just the Arctic. It's into environmental monitoring overall. You know, we've done missions to study wildlife, marine mammals, terrestrial animals, birds, fish. We've even performed incident command response with wildfires. In fact, you're showing right now is a slide in my background here of a project we did looking for salmon nesting, trying to identify with unmanned aircraft salmon and managing the salmon habitat. You know, we've studied sea ice, ice dynamics. We've done wildlife work in the U.S., Canada, South Africa, anti-poaching experts in all three countries. We've been building custom sensors for in situ monitoring of volcanic ash plumes, and actually hope to deploy those here fairly soon. So even though we are in the Arctic and we're focused heavily on the value that this technology brings to exploiting the Arctic or to managing, conserving the Arctic, if you will, our work goes well beyond Alaska and or all the way around the world.
Well, I was just recently in Iceland and spent 3 days over there getting ready for a Emerald Planet television program. And it was just amazing. I spent quite a bit of time with the fisheries people, and they're using the UAVs similar to what you have at the University of Alaska at Fairbanks, and they're monitoring the fish catch in real time, so they can tell literally to the pound the species they're taking out of the water and where they're schooling and just all these different information that's critical for them not just to maintain their fishery stocks, but they're trying to expand their fishery stocks. So what type of aircraft are you using through the University of Alaska to allow you to have such instantaneous monitoring and also to be able to make the analysis that you need to feed back to the agriculturalists and also to the fisheries industry?
Sure. Well, you know, I too have done some operations out of Iceland, actually just this summer. We'll be back in this fall. But, you know, since 2001, we've worked with aircraft ranging as large as the Global Hawk up here, and even worked with a prototype of the Predator back in 2005. Our work is involving atmospheric sensing and research. But, you know, our main focus today, since at least since 2006, has been the smaller systems. You know, these aircraft that weigh as much as 25 kilograms, but many weigh as little as 1 or 2 kilograms. Our fleet is made up of almost 200 aircraft. We have 10 different configurations today, 10 different types, and you know that number is growing. Each platform and the sensors that we've developed for them are unique and provide some unique capability for the various missions. You know, we kind of pride ourselves that we're not really a one-trick pony. You know, we don't have one aircraft, one solution to everybody's problem, but we really try to seek out across industry and around the world the most suitable platforms or sensors for whatever missions that may come our way. So, you know, we have rotorcraft, fixed wing. Some of these aircraft can fly almost a 24-hour duration. Some of them may only fly 15 minutes at a time. So it's just kind of all over the board, depending on what the application requires.
I think it's absolutely fantastic what you're doing there, Greg. And as you know, J.C. Coffey, who is a good friend of yours from the Trivector services, as he's sitting beside me as a Skype backup in case we happen to lose you. Fortunately, we haven't, so I'm going to let him ask the next question.
Hey, Greg, congratulations again on MISOPEX and all the great work you've done up in Licktock Point. Just fantastic. As we know, the Alaska's economy is heavily dependent upon the fossil fuel industry. And I was wondering, how is the university going to use UASs to monitor the environmentals in the arena of energy production?
You know, we are supporting the design, as you're well aware of, JC, in both design as well as integrations from new sensors to detect oil spills or infrastructure leaks, for that matter. You know, with these emerging real small aircraft, we are able to study the problem in very unique ways. You know, we can fly within just a couple meters, 2 to 3 meters away from a pipe or oiled water. And if you can get that close, where you can't do that with other platforms, other manned aircraft, for example, the sensor technologies that are available to actually detect the presence of a leak or an oil is just phenomenal. You know, the sensitivity we can get, the precision of knowledge exactly where the oil's at, stuff that can't even be detected with humans. We can now tell you that there's a leak here in this area, or the oil has been leaking out, or it's drifted this far in the water up on the beach. So that's been a big area of our work actually up here.
Well, I know one of the things that the work that you're doing there, and of course, with the world is now drying out, and also the forest fires, and just the magnitude of the damage to the environment and all that's going on. And we have this going on in the background, one of these wildfires here. Tell us how you're able to do this in real time, to go out and monitor this and feedback to people actually on the ground. So you really almost have a triangulation of the equipment, the university and your research facilities there, and people in the field that are addressing wildfires or some other environmental condition.
True. So yeah, the picture you have in the background there actually is some wildfire science exercises that we've participated in. So we've helped involved in wildfire both in incident command response, where Alaska, though many people don't realize it, often burns as much in Alaska as the rest of the United States does combined every year. And a lot of the fires up here are not aggressively fought, they're just monitored. But we also have the very bad condition where we have a wet ground, a very soft, mossy ground with a lot of trees that want to burn rapidly. And so we've created a lot of smoke. And so, you know, we've been called out on wildfires with our aircraft to fly when manned aircraft haven't flown in 5 days. And we can go up and we can map the perimeter of the fire. We can really understand if are the fire lines that the fire departments think they have maintained, are they holding? So, you know, one theme has been actually incident command response, actually helping fight fires with aerial observations. But the other has been science, trying to develop sensors and do operations to understand fire dynamics and how much smoke is generated from fires as you burn, and Greg, where the smoke may go and what hazards could be in it.
Greg, looking at, we only have about a minute left, and we're going to be losing you. So tell us, what do you see for the future of the UAVs, the UASs, through the University of Alaska Fairbanks and over the next 5, 10, 15 years?
You know, today our focus really is on exposing the technology to more and more end users and new applications. And I think the costs of this technology are coming down to the point where the price of the equipment is no longer going to be a limitation for what you do with it. It's going to be entirely about how much time people can spend, how much transportation they have to do to get out to the site where they want to do the observations, and then the data analysis afterwards. So I think that's where the trends are really headed right now, are very low cost systems that are essentially going to be not even a price factor in the projects.
Well, I tell you, it's just absolutely fantastic what you're doing, and your friend JC has said many good things about the work that you're doing there in Alaska. And of course, you're going to be back to discuss some more of these issues. But Gregory W. Walker is the director of the Alaska Center for Unmanned Aerial Systems Integration, University of Alaska at Fairbanks. And JC Coffey is sitting right beside me, Vice President of Trivector Services. And thank you for being with us as we look at all these different new technologies that are making a difference as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.
Osama bin Laden calls getting nuclear weapons a religious duty.
Today, materials that can be used to make nuclear weapons are stored in more than 40 countries.
Sometimes protected by just a chain-link fence.
Yet not enough is being done to lock down these materials
before terrorists steal them.
Why did we learn all this?
My mother.
My son.
My sister-in-law.
Were all murdered September 11th.
Help protect America.
Together we can.
Please join us.
The stem cell issue is being debated throughout the country. Truth is, most everyone has an opinion, even if they don't know the facts.
Let's stop arguing and start really understanding the potential of stem cell research.
For us and for millions of Americans living with disabilities, get the facts.
Call 1-877-842-3442 for free information from the Stem Cell Research Foundation. That's 1-877-842-3442.
Following the tragic events of September 11th, there have been hundreds of violent attacks against innocent Americans.
Remember what that flag you're waving stands for.
Remember, please stop the hate.
We're stronger when we are united.
Remember.
Remember what that flag you're waving stands for.
One nation, under God.
Indivisible.
With liberty.
And justice.
For all.
In America, there's either room for everyone, or it's not America. Don't pick the wrong fight.
Let's keep America land of the free.
Stop the hate.
Planning a home renovation? Put this at the top of your to-do list. Because after 10 years, none of you are protected against tetanus and another potentially fatal disease, diphtheria. A minor injury, such as a cut or a scrape, can put you at risk for a tetanus infection. And while safety gear offers some protection, an up-to-date vaccination called the TD Booster is the best insurance against tetanus. So get the TD Booster. If it's been 10, do it again.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Welcome to the Emerald Planet, come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States. I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, the President, Executive Director of the Emerald Planet and Emerald Planet TV. And we're looking around the globe for the 1,000 best practices, those technologies, services, and products that are making a difference as we go through the 21st century. And we're doing this in the platform of 144 different nations across 6 or 7 continents, depending on who's counting. And we're looking at how we can actually make a difference as we move towards 2050. And we have over 80% of the world's population living in urban areas, and we've added 2 billion new people to the planet. And so there's a lot to mull over in all of this and to think about. And we have 3 individuals that are going to join us in a panel discussion. We have 2, one coming in from Blacksburg, Virginia, Virginia Tech, Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University. And then we have a gentleman coming all the way in from Alaska, from the University of Alaska at Fairbanks. And sitting right beside me is John J.C. Coffey, who is Vice President of the Unmanned Aerial Systems Division of Trivector Services, and that's in Huntsville, Alabama, and right here in Washington, D.C., J.C. Thank you for being with us. Donnie Rogers is the project lead for Precision Agriculture, and then Greg Walker is the director for the Alaska Center for Unmanned Aerial Systems. So welcome to all 3 of you. Thank you for being on the Emerald Planet.
Thanks for having us, Sam.
So JC, let's start off with you, since you happen to be right in the studio with me and you can't escape. Tell us a little bit about Trivector and this unmanned aerial systems that we're talking about, and how are these actually being deployed both domestically and internationally, and the importance of these UAVs, UASs.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. So Trivector has been the Unmanned Systems Division. We've been working diligently to help organizations go from research and development to operations. And our company has centuries of experience when it comes to systems engineering, test and evaluation, program management. And we've been able to identify requirements across a number of organizations, both with our country and internationally, and then trying to couple up those requirements to existing capabilities and trying to make an affordable solution to get folks operating and have sustained operations for monitoring, whether it's environmental monitoring or maritime monitoring. So we've had some successes with that. Most recently we've been working very closely with NOAA and establishing their unmanned aircraft systems program, and then also we partner with industry and also academia, and we work very closely with the University of Alaska. We've worked with Virginia Tech, Mississippi State, Colorado State, University of Colorado, University of Oklahoma, Emory-Riddle.
So just passing it all around the United States, all these institutions of higher learning.
It's been great.
And that's a wonderful thing. Also, for our viewers internationally, what is NOAA?
NOAA is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and most people would know the National Weather Service and the hurricane hunters is the biggest part and most important parts of NOAA, but we also take care of our marine sanctuaries and our fisheries. So we set the catch limits around the United States and keep an eye on all our fishery service as well.
And we should say that you've actually flown into hurricanes and actually have taught people how to do that. That's an amazing, that's right. Amazing feat in its own right. Well, Donnie Rogers from Virginia Tech, welcome, and glad to have you on. But how does a world-class research institution like Virginia Tech use the UAVs, and how does that relate directly to precision agriculture, which is really becoming a term that's almost has popped on the scene, but actually has critical importance as we try to provide the fuel, the food and fiber for 2 billion new people on a planet that's going to have about 9 billion folks.
Sure, thanks for having me once again. The university has a couple different groups, other than my own, that fly UAS. We had an early effort by a Dr. Schmally, excuse me, who was flying a fixed-wing aircraft over a field to detect spores given off. And I can't recall what the application for that project was, but that's just one of many. And I mentioned my project, we're doing fertilizer studies over corn. We've flown radiation detection missions before. We've flown cooperative missions where we can deploy ground robots from our system in the event of, it was kind of like an emergency response unit was what we were developing at the time. But as you mentioned, yeah, we're really moving forward now into some more work with precision agriculture and being able to map and monitor fields.
Yeah, Greg, you're up in Alaska and at the University of Alaska Fairbank, and I know that the civilian aircraft now more and more are using the UAVs, the UASs, and it's becoming more and more critical to your own integration system right there. What do you see as far as the benefit from this rapid expansion of using these unmanned vehicles, and how do you see that really impacting the economy but also the environment of Alaska?
Sure. So, you know, the technology can be oftentimes less expensive to operate, and cost may be a factor in some missions. But we see a lot of missions up here where safety is a big factor. You know, if I want to fly like we did just a couple weeks ago at 100-meter altitude, some 200 kilometers offshore over the Arctic Ocean, that's not a real safe place to be in a manned aircraft. We've done that work. We've actually looked for marine mammals in very remote, very austere locations out in the Aleutian Island chain, places where we just don't want to fly manned aircraft. It's just not safe. You know, some other work we're doing right now is looking at like flying volcanic ash plumes to make some in situ observations of volcanic aerosols. And that's another dangerous area. So yeah, cost is a factor of this technology, but sometimes it's a matter of safety. And then, you know, the third thing I can really address up here with some of the work we've been doing is getting them into environments where you really can't put a manned aircraft. You know, flying real close to infrastructure, you know, pipelines or flare stacks, you know, within just a couple meters of structures that you wouldn't want to put a manned aircraft anywhere close to, for safety reasons for both infrastructure as well as the pilot. You know, we've flown missions looking for salmon in canyons where actually they've crashed helicopters and killed pilots before. And we've actually experimented with taking unmanned aircraft in environments like that and can show that we can do the job as good as, if not better than, the manned aircraft, and places you just don't want to fly manned aircraft. So cost is sometimes a factor, but you know, oftentimes it's an issue of safety as well.
Well, I think many times it's safety is a real critical factor, because if you look at it, it's about, I understand JC and the work that you've done in the past, it's about $1 million a copy for a pilot to put them out there as far as their training and all that. If you can send an unmanned system, it's much cheaper than that, but also is that you want to save your critical asset, which is the pilot, for other things. But looking at the change over the 30+ years that you've been, you know, a career in this, you've flown all types of aircraft, like we talked about. You've flown into hurricanes, and actually I think probably much worse over your career. So what do you see as far as the change in these UAVs as we move through the future, and how they're really going to make a difference for humanity, for the environment, the economy, but also civil society development?
Yeah, and I think unmanned systems are going to revolutionize monitoring, much like radar and satellites have done in the past. So a lot of the places that were too dangerous or too difficult to get to, or were simply unaffordable, now we can do that with unmanned systems. And I mentioned it earlier, let Moore's Law work for you. If you don't have the system or you don't have the sensor that is at the right size or capacity, give it 18 months or 2 times 18 months or 3 times 18 months, and you'll get the sensor with a lot of capability that'll be affordable, that'll be able to accomplish your mission.
Well, Donnie, out at Virginia Tech, I know you're really committed to expand the laboratory you have there for the unmanned aerial systems. And what do you see as far as the expansion, and why would the university be willing to invest its resources, but then how does it leverage those resources to work with private industry and more NGOs, non-governmental organizations that are doing humanitarian disaster recovery work around the globe?
Sure. So the university, has a great history of reaching out and working with other groups. Like I mentioned, we had a large project before funded by DITRA, Defense Intelligence Threat Reduction Agency. Over the university as a whole, we work with everyone from Boeing and GE to even small local businesses. We had a flight mission last summer that was just a small local engineering firm. As mentioned, the university and really mechanical engineering, we see the UAS as a tool that gives you a lot of abilities that we didn't have before. Just the eye in the sky, is sometimes called. That point of view allows for the collection of so much information, and we're able to let other entities know of our ability and then accept partnerships with them to kind of further the technology and publish our results and really, help this technology emerge and grow.
I know, Greg, the work you're doing at the University of Alaska Fairbanks is that it's really important that you work with many different nations because of the Arctic zone and the number of nations that are part of the Arctic Compact. So how do you see the work that you're doing there through your UAV, UASs, impacting all the nations that are members of and can actually have claim on the Arctic zone itself?
We've already begun that. We've been working on a couple different projects in Finland. I've flown missions personally in Iceland, and we'll return there again still this year before the end of the year. We've operated in Canada twice, and we think we're going to go back there and do more missions as well. The challenge we have to really look at across the Arctic, though, is to expose more and more of those end users, people who have a need for what can an aircraft like this provide to them. With the capabilities of the technology. And from those experiments, we're also identifying the limitations of this technology to fly in super icing conditions and extremely cold weather, which is a challenge. It's not typically been the environment this technology has been developed for to date. So anyway, that's kind of where we're headed, is trying to expose more and more of the audience who might have a need for this technology to just what it can do for them.
Well, as you can tell, we're running the credits, JC, so we've lost our colleague up in Alaska. And but it's great having you with us, and thank you for being on the program.
Real pleasure.
You've done a really great job in all this, and it's exciting what's going on in this whole industry and how you're actually